All right, everyone. Welcome to this podcast that does not have a name. We thought of this idea 2 or 3 days ago, and we're just going to go with it here. So I'm Aidan Michaels. I'm joined by Jack Weisberg. I'm joined by Nate Cohn or Nathan Cohn by government name. And we are just going to talk about our first round predictions of the 2024 NHL playoffs. We all have very unbiased opinions for the most part until we get to a certain series, which we'll talk about later. So we're going to start on the East Coast, the Eastern Conference, the Battle of Florida, the Florida Panthers, and the wild card one spot, the Tampa Bay Lightning. So this was a tough. Well, all of them were tough for me, honestly, except for a couple series. But this one was particularly tough because you've got the Panthers, who are top of the Atlantic Division, a very hard Atlantic Division. Of course, you got Toronto and Boston in that same division, and then you've got the wild card team, the Lightning, who weren't very good in the regular season, but in the playoffs, we know they can turn it up. Two straight Stanley Cups, and then going to the finals for a third straight year, and then losing 2 years ago. They always seem to get things going in the playoffs. We look at the head-to-head matchups this season. The Panthers and Lightning had two close games. Lightning won one of them, the Panthers won one of them, and then the Panthers won a game 9-2 against Tampa Bay. Your thoughts?
I have Florida in seven for this one. I think this is going to be a great matchup, obviously. You have two great teams who, probably shouldn't be playing each other in the playoffs, I believe. But I think, they have a great core. Obviously, Florida, great core from last season. I think they got a lot of potential there. I see them, kind of going pretty far in this playoff, but I do have them in seven. Obviously, they're led by Kachuk. 88 points, Reinhart, 94 points. The list goes on there. And, I'm not discrediting Tampa Bay at all. I think they're a great team. They have a lot of potential. Obviously, their goaltending is number one in the NHL. I really don't see, why they couldn't, beat them either. But in, my opinion, I think Florida's hungry, and I think they're going to take this one seven.
By the way, before you go, Jack, way to say the prediction already. Way to scrap our
Oh,
wait till the
oh
end
crap.
that type thing.
Totally forgot about that. I totally just threw that out the window. My bad. My bad.
Anyway, all right. So you said Florida in seven. Fair enough.
I'm in agreement with Nate on this one, unfortunately. I think the goaltending of the Panthers and just the overall depth is gonna be too much. I know that the Lightning have the experience, but I just think the Panthers are more prepared. And they're gonna come in and they're gonna win in six.
In six. Okay. I'm intrigued first of all with this coaching matchup. You've got
Right.
John Cooper is one of the best coaches, I think, at least since I've been alive. And then you've got Paul Maurice, who's been in the league since the 90s. What's funny is he's been in the league, what, 15, 20 years longer than John Cooper has, and they're almost the same age, or just 1 year apart. Those are honestly two of my favorite coaches in the league, so I'm very excited to see that. We've got Reinhardt, like you said, Nate, who's got 88 points, or was he at? Not 94 points this season.
94.
Yeah,
Yeah.
94. He was 2 goals away from tying the Panthers record for most
Mhm.
goals in a season. That was Pavel Bure's 59 goal record. Reinhardt had 57. Listen, if you put the two names next to each other, Bure and Reinhardt, you know which one's better. So it's crazy that a player like Reinhardt, not trying to discredit him, but a player like Reinhardt is scoring this many goals.
Okay.
Lethal on the power play. That's the thing they got to look out for because the Lightning on their penalty kill are not great. But I'll tell you what, the Lightning power play is something I want to look at. They're number one in the league, 28%. 28% is incredible for a power play. It brings us back to when we saw that Oilers power play that was around 30%, one of the best we've ever seen. Uh,
Mhm.
it's going to be a matchup that I think is going to be very close. So, Jack, you said Panthers in six. Nate, you said Panthers in seven. This game is going to 7 games, in my opinion. It is. Except I think the winner is going to be the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Mm.
I really think it is. I obviously I think the Panthers, they've had a much better regular season. The Lightning have not had the best season to their standards. There's a lot of the season where we thought, okay, the Lightning aren't going to make the playoffs, and they snuck into the wild card spot and made it. But I think once we get to the playoffs, we scrap everything that happened in the regular season. It's out the window for the most part. Tampa Bay in the playoffs is a different animal. When they made it to the final, remember they won those back-to-back cups? And then the year that Colorado won in 2022, I didn't think Tampa was going to make it out of the first round. They scraped by the first round, got by the second round. They made it all the way to the final, almost forced a game seven to win their third straight cup. Tampa Bay in the playoffs is a different animal.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally agree with that one. I think, it all starts with goaltending for me, honestly. I mean, you see it in 2012. I'm sorry for being biased here. Johnny Quick, I mean, he carries us every time, every time. And he's going to be spectacular. And I think Vasilevsky, he obviously has that opportunity to do that again. And, it was really tight, but, I don't see why Tampa Bay can't do it. I just, gut feeling I'm going with the Panthers on this one.
Right, fair enough. Also, so Jack, I want to ask you this question because there's a lot of debate on as to what the Hart Trophy really means for the MVP. Is it the best player in the league, or is it the player that helps his team the most? And I want to just bring up that fact because Nikita Kucherov, who leads the NHL in points, who's just won the Art Ross Trophy, 100 assists, second player this season to do it, but one of 5 players in NHL history to do it. 44 goals, 144 points in 81 games. Is that enough for you to win the Art Ross or the Hart Trophy? And is that enough to at least make this a tight series? Is he going to be the one that carries the Lightning, or is it more of a team effort in your eyes?
Well, I think those stats tell you everything you need to know. He's the guy. He does deserve the Hart Trophy. But I mean, maybe for you, he's gonna be carrying this series to 7 and getting the win. But for me, I I don't see that happening. I see the Florida's defense and goaltending just taking over in this one, and just really making it hard on Lightning's offense and slowing down that power play is going to be huge. If they can do that early on, it's going to change the series.
Absolutely. It'll be if they can stop that, if the Panthers can stop that Tampa Bay power play, then they may be in good hands. But I just don't think they will. It's one of the best power plays I've seen. I mean, I was just watching the Lightning Leafs game, the last game of the season, hoping Matthews would get that 70th goal. Instead, it was Kucherov got that 100th assist in the power play. Their power play is, I mean, they eat teams alive on the power play.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like that when there's a power play, okay, we're up, we're gonna score. You know what I mean? I just think I'm not sure the Panthers can deal with that. They've got a decent penalty kill too, but I'm not sure you can deal with that Tampa Bay power play. The only thing I would say is that I know refs tend to call less penalties in the playoffs, unless it's the Oilers. But anyway, anyway, so yeah, so you pick Panthers in 7, Nate. You pick Panthers in 6, Jack. I'm going Tampa Bay in 7. Either way, it's going to be a phenomenal series. I can't wait. It's
Oh
a
yeah.
really exciting one. The state of Florida battling at it again. Uh, you love to see it. Brings us to our next matchup. Atlantic second place, Atlantic third place. Another very, very high anticipated game or series, and I'm extremely excited for it. It is the Boston Bruins, which Jack is sporting his northeastern Boston jersey, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Head to head, the Bruins are 4-0 this season against the Maple Leafs. 2 of them have been in extra time, so one was in a shootout, one was in overtime. The other 2 were Bruin 4-1 wins. I talked about in the Panthers and Lightning series about how I'm going to disregard everything that happened in the regular season. Do you guys also have that same approach, or do you say, hey, Bruins are 4-0 against the Leafs this season, they're going to carry it over?
No, absolutely. I think this is going to be, apart from the other series, the Battle of Florida, I think this is going to be the #1 most watched series, in all of the play. I think it's going to be so fun to watch. I think Boston, Toronto, there's so much talent on each side. It's going to be great. I think, Pasta obviously having a great season like he always does, and Matthews, setting records like he always does as well. So I think it's going to be like super tight. I think it comes down to, goaltending for me again. I think Boston has that there. Not saying that Toronto can't do anything because they're just so great offensively that totally shuts down games. But I think it's going to be a really great matchup, and I'm super super excited. I really don't know where this one can go. It can go so many different ways. I sometimes I feel like Boston will sweep it out of the water, and then sometimes feel like Toronto is going to be, the team and, finally, look to get close to that cup. But, for me, I think I'm actually going to go with Boston in 7 for this one. I think this is going to go as long as it, possibly can. I wouldn't be surprised if there's multiple overtime games in this. I think it's going to be really tight and it's going to be really exciting.
Okay. Another 7-game series for you, Nate. What about you, Jack?
Mhm.
What are we thinking here?
Well, I actually just switched up. So
Ooh.
I did have the Leafs in 6 prior to this recording. Um, but I think that just the power play of the Bruins, hearing that they're 4-0 in the regular season, and they've done it in the big moments, shootout, overtime. That's when you need wins. And there are going to be games in this series that go to overtime, maybe even double overtime, and the team with the physicality to win those games is going to be the Bruins. So I have the Bruins in a hard fought 5-game series.
Ooh.
Wow.
Wow. A switch up from Toronto in 6 to Boston in 5. Okay. That's okay, that's fair enough. I just love, I mean, obviously we look at one of the most notorious blown series of all time when it was game 7 in 2013. The Leafs were up 3-1. Bruins come back and win it, and the Leafs have just been a laughing stock of the NHL ever since. Um, but I look back to just 2019, right before the pandemic, which to this day is obviously besides when the Kings were winning the cup in 12 and 14. Uh, in recent times is my favorite playoff year. 2019 was so great for me. Blues ended up beating the Bruins in the final. But we look at that first round of 2019. Boston ended up winning in 7 games. It went Toronto, Boston, Toronto, Boston, Toronto, Boston, Boston. That's how the series went. I think it's going to be very similar this year to how it went in 2019. Again, I'm sticking with. I'm throwing out what happens in the regular season. Yes, the Bruins won 4-1 twice against the Leafs, but the shootout in the overtime, you're not going to get a shootout in the playoffs. You're
Mhm.
not going to get a 3-on-3 overtime in the playoffs. You're getting 5-on-5 hockey the whole time. To me, I mean, we know shootouts and overtimes can happen. It can go either way in a heartbeat when it comes to regular season. So obviously, I'm not giving the Leafs 2 wins and the Bruins 2 wins, but it very well could have been the Leafs winning a shootout, having a better breakaway shot than the Bruins did. So that to me makes it a little bit closer than it seems. When I think of the Bruins, I think of all the way back, even in 2019. You got Chara, Marchand, Bergeron, Krejci, those guys. Dare I say, even, back in the day, Tim Thomas, Tuukka Rask more recently. Then you look at Bruins now, you still got Pasternak, who's, 110 points. He's fifth in the league, so that's unbelievable. And you got Marchand, who's, not having the best year. It's his second year in a row he's had 67. It's his third worst in his career. But then you got players like Charlie Coyle, Pavel Zacha, Charlie McAvoy, players that, I mean, McAvoy, sure, but Zacha and Coyle, and for example, Trent Frederick, Morgan Geekie, all players that are setting career highs for themselves that you wouldn't necessarily expect to have good seasons. So they're not bringing this crazy star power, but they do have the depth. They do have this good team. For the
X
Leafs,
factors.
yeah, I mean, when you look at the rosters, it's certainly not the team you saw in 2019 or when they won the cup in 2011 or in the final in 2013. But then I don't know. You got the Matthews. To me, honestly, I always say the team that I always root for, if it's not the Kings, is the Maple Leafs. And I've really loved watching them. I know everyone laughs at the Maple Leafs. Oh, they haven't won a cup since '67, and I get it. I get it. Um, but for me, Matthews, 69 goals, 107 points. You got William Nylander on the brink of getting 100 points. And then you still got players like Marner and Tavares and Domi, who is injured right now, but he'll come back. Um, again, I think this game's going to 7. I do.
Yeah.
Do you know where I'm going with this, though? The winner
No.
of the 7-game series, in my opinion, is going to be the Toronto Maple Leafs. They will beat the Boston Bruins and face off against the Tampa Bay Lightning for the second straight year in the playoffs. I
Yeah.
mean, just think about what Matthews has done this year. Again, it's not a one-man team. I understand that. He is unbelievable. He's had the highest goals per game percentage since Lemieux scored 69 goals back in the 90s, in 95. Matthews he's having a season that we have not seen in our lives. Jack and I are 2003. What are you, 2009 or something? What are you born in?
2006.
2006. Like,
Yeah.
to me, this is I'm not gonna say the year, but the Leafs are gonna win a playoff series for the second year in a row. They are going to the second round of the playoffs. Is
All
that a
right, so
correct?
I didn't have that much opinion on the series, but now apparently I do. I absolutely don't believe you can go off one player's personal success. I mean, don't get me wrong, Nylander, Matthews, whatever, they're great. It comes down to it comes down to those nights when it's like hard battles and there's no room on the ice. There's refs aren't calling anything. Matthews can't get, help from, whoever he needs. Like it's gonna be great. But I mean, I don't see him having as much success in the playoffs as he did in the regular season. So that's personally why I have Boston over them.
I will say this one quick thing before I go to you, Jack. I'm not saying that I know I'm geeking over Matthews right now, and I may sound like a Matthews fanboy. Maybe I am. But I know you just said, okay, yeah, Matthews obviously had his historic season, and then you're like, yeah, they have Nylander too. Yeah, they do have Nylander, 40 goal scorer, 98 points. Are we forgetting Mitch Marner that had 85 points? Should I add that he had 85 points in 69 games this season? Should I add that? Not to mention their captain Tavares, who's having one of his worst seasons, but still putting up 65 points. Is it? Are we discounting that?
No,
Like
it is fair enough. It's just, gut feeling. Playoff hockey's fresh slate. So
fair
I
enough.
don't know, man. We'll see. We'll see.
And I will say that the Leafs, because I have watched their last few games, they haven't been playing great, and they haven't been a team that's rested all their stars. So you expect them to play a little bit better, but that's just me.
And I don't think me and Nate are discrediting star power on
Yeah.
the Maple Leaf squad. We're just saying that the Bruins' physicality, the Bruins' experience
Mhm.
in these playoff games, that's what's getting you the dub.
Yep. Mhm.
That's fair. But listen, I think when I say that a team wins in seven, that obviously opens it up to say that it could go either way. That's why I said Lightning in seven. I know that I'm kind of in the minority with putting the Lightning and the Leafs winning. That's why I say it's in seven. Okay, we're gonna head before we head to the Rangers Capitals. I do love this stat, which I didn't know about this. So Matthews, who has won the Rocket Award 3 times, he was the first Leafs player to lead the NHL in goals since 1945. That's like we're talking World War II
Wow.
Germany type stuff.
Yeah.
You know who led the Leafs in goals that year? You want to
Cool.
know? Gay Stewart. Who's who's that?
My
Who?
man.
We done with the 40s? Is that what they say in basketball? Just with the 90s, Jack? Like, who's Gay Stewart? Nobody knows who that is. No disrespect to the Stewart family. I'm sure you're gonna be one of the 8 people that watch this video, but anyway, I wanted to say that stat. So once again, you boys picking Boston, I'm picking Toronto. So we disagree again, which is funny because my brackets are always terrible. You guys are probably gonna be right. Um, now we have a series that God, I hope we all agree on here. I know Jack and I already, we kind of, before you got here, Nate, we were alluding to the fact that something was going to happen. The New York Rangers, the President's Trophy winners, and the team that just barely sent themselves to the playoffs by scoring an empty net goal in a tie game against Philadelphia, the Washington Capitals. Just tell me what you guys think. I hope we're all on the same page here, but maybe we're not.
Well, I mean, obviously, yeah, I'm gonna go with the Rangers on this one. I don't see why, anyone wouldn't. I mean, they have, all the pieces. I mean, on paper, they look like one of, if not the best team in the NHL. I don't see anything really wrong with it, but that goes, with personalities, players like Panarin, who don't get me wrong, are all for their team, but they can be selfish sometimes. Playoff hockey is obviously about grinding, battling. They don't exactly have that reputation. They have a few guys, obviously, Rempe. All their big D man. I'm forgetting his name right now, but he they're going to be key pieces in that too. Really bring the physicality to the series. But Washington, I just don't think they're a very strong team. Probably shouldn't have made the playoffs. Obviously Ovi's done it. He's been there before. So I obviously have a little faith in him getting something done, but not to winning the entire series. And obviously goaltending for the Rangers, Shesterkin's amazing, and Quickie behind him. I mean, you can't really get much better than that, in my opinion. So I have Rangers in 5.
Jack, what do you think about Nate giving the Caps a game there?
I think it's shocking. Um, I mean, the Rangers are definitely my favorite to come out of the Eastern Conference, no doubt. And I think this is a chumps match for them. They're gonna bring out the brooms, and I really don't see any of these games being close. Maybe one is a one goal game, but the Rangers have no time to play around. Um, they need a real series.
I'm thinking, yeah, again, I for some reason, Nate, I thought you were going to say the Caps were going to win the series. I don't know why. So four of the last five playoff meetings between these two teams have gone to 7 games. This will not happen because that was a better Caps team and a really good Rangers team. This Caps team, like you said, they're no disrespect. They're not good. They really aren't. I'm going to be honest. First of all, Ovechkin is having his worst career ever. There have been seasons he scored more goals in the COVID season, which was shortened, and the lockout season. He scored more goals. I know he's 38. I get it. I love Ovechkin. He's awesome. I hope he beats the Gretzky record. And I think he will. He's not having a great year. Again, I'm not just going to talk about one player. First of all, he has the worst plus minus out of any player that is on a playoff team, which is
Wow.
pretty funny to think about. The Capitals finished the season with a minus 37 goal difference. It's the worst goal difference for a playoff team in 33 years.
Wow.
In 33 years. I mean, again, they shouldn't be here. They got in because of an empty net goal. In my opinion, I think it should have been the Red Wings, which I would honestly give the Red Wings at least a game or two against the Rangers, maybe. The Caps made it, and I just think that they have zero, absolutely zero chance. Um, I'm gonna go with the New York Rangers in 4 games. I always want to pick a sweep, and I feel like this is the one. And I know what can happen. Listen, the Kings beat the Capital or the Canucks in 5 games in 2012. They were the President's Trophy winners. We barely made the playoffs. We won the cup. The Panthers just beat in 7 games the best regular season team of all time in the first round. So stuff like this can happen. The Panthers showed promise. They made it to the Cup final. The Kings showed promise. They ended up sweeping the Blues in the next round, winning the Stanley Cup that year. The Capitals just don't. I don't think they have it in them to pull off a miracle. So I'm going to say Rangers in 4. Jack, you say Rangers in 4. Nate, you say Rangers in 5. So before we get to the next one, guys, I we don't have money because nobody watches our stuff, and this is our first thing. So we can't afford Zoom Pro. So we get a time limit of how much time we can spend on this. So there's going to be a cut right now because we have to start this over because we don't have money to get Zoom Pro. So we'll be right back, and then we'll get into the Hurricanes versus the Islanders. Okay, we've got the Carolina Hurricanes and the team that I really hope just gets swept and never sees a playoff game in their entire franchise history starting now, the New York Islanders. I hate the New York Islanders so much. And partly it's because Jack and I went to see the Islanders play the Kings, and it was on when the Kings had 11 straight road wins to start the season. We were about to see 12. We lost in overtime. That's one reason why I hate the Islanders. Many reasons why I hate the Islanders. Well, we don't even want to get into it. This is an Islanders rant, okay? It's not. So looking at the head-to-heads, pretty close. Pretty close. Hurricanes won one game in overtime. Then the next game went to the Islanders in overtime. The game after that, the Islanders won 5-4, and then the Hurricanes won 4-1. So 3 of the 4 meetings have been one-goal games, 2 of which went to overtime. Then we look at the playoff head-to-heads. The Canes are 2-0 against the Islanders in the playoffs. They swept them in 19, and then they played last season. Canes won in 6 games. Nate, is this one so far for you the tightest one, or do you have a clear-cut winner?
I mean, it's a tight. No, I wouldn't say it's tight at all. I think the Canes just have way more playoff success than the Islanders, and that's obviously proven. I think they just have a lot of pieces that are going to be really great during the playoffs. I mean, the acquisition of Gensel. I mean, he's been, amazing for the team. I think he's going to be, obviously, he's won a cup first year. I mean, he has the experience, he has everything there. But, Aho, obviously, their franchise guy, 89 points. He's having a great season. Obviously, he got a good personality. Seth Jarvis, 22-year-old. I mean, he seems like a locker room guy who, really seems to, glue that team together. And I think they're going to be an exciting team to watch. And, I think the Islanders, obviously, they're an upsetter team, that I can definitely see them, pulling a few strings and, getting the job done. But, I think, Barzell, I think they got a lot of good pieces there, but, I just don't feel it with them. So I'm taking Carolina in 6 again.
Okay. Jack, don't you think Nate has kind of like a Canadian accent when he talks about hockey? You notice that? Is that just me?
Maybe a
Maybe
I
little.
maybe a little
I
bit.
don't
You don't hear
I
his voice as much
really
as much, but
I
you're a very hockey interview guy. Oh, this is happening, and
well, I'm just man, oh shit, I can't. Oh shit. I mean, you can't like just trying to like connect pieces of words to you better not add this.
oh, it's all going in. Wait, it's all going in. I don't know what you're talking about here. No way.
I
You say Canes in 6.
Canes and 6, yeah.
Okay. I will just say right off the bat before I give my reasons here. I also have Canes in 6. I have Carolina in 6. At first, when I saw the matchup, I was like, okay, first of all, this is going to be a very boring series because this is coming from a Kings fan. The Islanders play some boring hockey. I mean, they really do. It annoys me a lot. First of all, I want to say the Islanders are their second team in the playoffs to finish with a negative goal difference. Not as bad as the Capitals' negative goal difference. But first of all, the Islanders have the worst penalty kill in the league, first of all. They've got 16 overtime losses this season, which is absurd. I think the NHL record is like 18 or 19. They were very close to getting the record for most overtime losses in a season. So they've got a lot of points. That's 16 overtime losses where they've gotten points from. That's 8 points there in those 16 games. Um, the Canes, on the other hand, have a really good penalty kill. They've got the second, or they've got the best in the league. The second is your Los Angeles Kings. Um,
Mhm.
they've got the best penalty kill in the league. They've got the second best power play. Imagine that. Second best power play in the league going up against the absolute worst penalty kill in the league. I'm not a scientist there, but like there's going to be a lot of goals scored for the Carolina Hurricanes. Um, Another reason why I have the Islanders losing is similar to what I said at the very beginning, which I just hate them. I just want them to. I want to watch the Hurricanes and Islanders games and just root against the Islanders. That's the team. That's what I'm doing. People like when their teams aren't in the playoffs, they pick a team. Obviously, the Kings are in the playoffs, but I'm just picking a team that I want to lose. Carolina, gone. Or sorry, New York, gone. I hate them. I don't want them in the playoffs. They're the worst. And I'm gonna stop ranting because I'm getting carried away. Jack, just stop me here.
I mean, no, I don't want to stop you. I'm gonna carry on with what you're saying. I think that these Islanders are painful to watch. I mean, we went to a game this year and they ended up beating
You
the
lost.
Kings, but it wasn't pretty. It was, I mean, the fans weren't even excited walking out of there. Um, I think the Islanders are a team that really just shouldn't be in the playoffs. I think this would be a much better series if the Penguins were in this slot. Um, but this is what we got, and we have to deal with it. I just think the Kings are going to dominate the series. Let's be honest. I mean, you gave out the PK and power play numbers that those don't lie. Carolina is also one of the best teams in the league, 5-on-5, and I have them going in 5. I would not be surprised if this is a sweep.
Honestly, I wouldn't either. And when I first looked at the matchup, I thought to myself, okay, easy sweep for Carolina. But then the more I looked into the Islanders, I was like, you know what? It's not going to be as dominant for the Canes as I think. I think Nate and I think we're being a little generous by giving the Islanders uh 2 games. I could see it totally. If I could change it, I'm not going to change it because I want to I overthought it so much last night that I just want to stick with what I went with. But if I were to change it, I would say Hurricanes in 5. I wouldn't be surprised if the Islanders got a game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say this, and I'll say this again. Boring hockey wins championships. And honestly, as much as I hate the Islanders, I mean, I don't think they have the skill to do it, but I certainly do. Not that we're getting too much on the Kings here, but I certainly think that, Kings play some of the most boring hockey in all of the National Hockey League. So the Islanders, which is why I feel so bad for you guys wasting just money on going to a game, which is basically watching paint dry. So I mean, I think the Islanders, I think they can put a little, get a game or two in, but they definitely will not have the gas to go, take over Carolina entirely. There's no way.
Okay, I was gonna ask because when you said boring hockey wins championships, I was like, are you insinuating the Islanders?
Not the Islanders though, because we can
Okay,
all share that agreement of hating the Islanders, but everyone else that plays boring hockey, they have a good chance of winning it.
fair enough. Listen, ever since the Islanders fans started booing John Tavares when he
Yeah,
left, is when I started rooting on their downfall. I'm against that. Imagine John Tavares, what was he there, 9 years, giving everything he possibly could, ending a 28-year drought, playoff series drought for the Islanders. God forbid he wants to leave and play for his childhood team, and then you boo him like he's a snake.
yeah,
Without him, the Islanders would be nothing.
yeah. I mean, you see that in so many different sports. I mean, players do that all the time, and it's just like, why do the Islanders have to do that? Like, and at least it's for like a good reason too. Like, he grew up in Toronto, like you said, and I don't see a reason like why they like
Right?
why. I mean, I get it. Maybe you wanted to have a little more success with them there, but I think that's just
What do you want him
called.
to do? I mean, it's acceptable to
Unrealistic.
boo players, I think. Sorry to cut you off. I'll just say it's acceptable to boo players when they leave teams for certain reasons, but the Tavares one didn't make sense to me. Sorry, Jack. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, like, it's unrealistic to say that you wanted more out of the Tavares-led Islanders. Like, they hit their ceiling. Like, be happy it happened. Don't fucking shoot. Don't hate him because he left, you know?
Yeah, no, listen, I fully agree. It's like going back to him breaking the long streak of no playoff series wins for the Islanders. That's the peak. The Islanders fans don't realize that was their peak. Like they just got carried away with winning. The Islanders are such a funny franchise. They won four straight Stanley Cups in the 80s and then they just dipped. Then they just became like the most irrelevant team. Like where did they go? You had like Trottier and Bossy and all those guys in the 80s, and then you got nothing. So maybe those fans were just like, "Oh, Tavares is gonna bring the four-peat back to Long Island." No, it just isn't. It's not. It's not happening. And the Islanders are worse now, I think. And I'm very happy. As much as I want to see the Islanders and Maple Leafs in an Eastern Conference final, it just won't happen. It just won't happen for many years, in my opinion. Even though the Islanders had that weird Cinderella run a few years
Yeah,
back, not
yeah.
gonna happen this year. I'm sorry. It just isn't. I will say this though, before we get to our next series. I'm a big hypothetical guy, and this is why I'm so bad at making brackets because I just overthink things. Let's say by some miracle the Capitals beat the Rangers and the Islanders somehow beat the Hurricanes. I know it's a crazy hypothetical. The Islanders have a chance then of going to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think the Islanders beat the Caps, but again, two insane things need to happen. Let's not even talk about that. But well,
Yeah, yeah. You clearly didn't get much sleep last night.
I did.
That's not happening.
Oh Lord. All right. That does it for our Eastern Conference. Of course, we're gonna have just because I'm such a great editor. Like, no, I use iMovie, but like I'll put something on the screen that'll show our brackets at the end or show our predictions of what we've done for the Eastern Conference. We move over to the Western Conference, starting off with one of the scariest looking teams, the Dallas Stars. They, as of last night, because of the Ducks losing to Vegas, or sorry, the Ducks beating Vegas and the Kings somehow beating Chicago after that crazy stuff that was going on last night. The Vegas Golden Knights will match up against the Stars, the team that looks very scary in the West. The Golden Knights, the team that, of course, has their cap issues, and oh, surprise, surprise, Mark Stone is back in time for the
There
playoffs.
you
And
go.
I feel so like I'm always one to joke about on Instagram or whatever about how the Caps always put Stone on the long-term injured reserve and then right before the playoffs get him back to avoid, cap circumvention or whatever. But I do have to say, like Stone is he is known for being injured. Like this guy gets hurt. He gets
Mhm.
hurt a lot, and I do feel bad. Like I'm not trying to kick him while he's out. I know he had a lacerated spleen. Like obviously that's a pretty serious injury, but it is fun to poke fun at the the Golden Knights for this cap circumvention. Though I do feel bad for Stone, but he will be ready as well as Tomas Hurdle who they got at the trade deadline from San Jose, he just came back and he played a couple games for Vegas at the end of the season. He's going to be back in the playoffs. Nate, you're shaking your head. Are you as angered as I am about this whole cap circumvention thing with Vegas?
Well, listen, I know you hate the Islanders, and I hate them too, but I just don't have as much hate for them as I do for the Vegas Golden Knights. I think what they do to the NHL is horrible. I think, schlepping these great players together in the last minute, keeping them long term, whatever. I don't think that's going to work for them at all. I think Dallas is too good of a team, obviously. I think they have a great core in Joe Pavelski, Jamie Benn. These guys are hungry, still haven't won one. And then they also have some really good young guys who I've loved. Wyatt Johnson has had a great season, 65 points. I think it's the second year in the league, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, he's been great. So I mean, I think if they have a really good kind of dynamic going with these older guys, kind of pay them the way, and then kids like Wyatt and obviously Robertson are they're doing their thing and they're great. And then not to mention Ottinger, one of the best goalies in the NHL. I mean, he's going to be huge. And like I said a couple of times before, goalies are gonna do it for me. I mean, I think they're gonna have a great series against them. Vegas is obviously going to come out hot, and I think they'll get a game or two. But ultimately, I'm going to have Dallas in 6.
Dallas in 6. Okay, Jack, do you concur?
So I did concur prior to this recording. But listening to Nate speak, just got me thinking as to why do I have Dallas in 6? And didn't really make much sense to me sitting here in this chair now. So I mean now
Well, he's stuck. He's stuck. He's stressing right now.
I just think that the Knights are so overpowered, and I feel like
Hmm.
they're still underrated. Nobody really, I mean, they're coming into this as the second wild card team, but their roster does not tell you that they're a second wild card team. They can beat Dallas on any given night in a 7-game series. I have the star power of Vegas. I have the experience of Vegas. They've been here, done that. So have Dallas, don't get me wrong, but Vegas has most recently been here, done that. They're defending champs. This one's tough. I think I'm going Vegas in
Wow.
5.
Oh my God.
Whoa, Vegas in
I
5.
Wow.
I think that it's gonna surprise a lot of people.
Fucking hell.
Vegas is a much better team than what they've been playing like this season. They've been
Agreed.
a lot of injuries as they always do, but they're getting healthy at the right time, and they're gonna show everybody why they're
I
good
mean,
of
of
Stanley Cup
course they're
champions.
getting healthy at the right time. It's the Knights. Like they're gonna always be healthy at the right time. And that's why I just think I hate them so much. And I just think the worst team to have in the Western Conference, let alone the NHL. I think they just should be removed entirely. Ship them down to Mexico. I don't care. They don't belong in the
Maybe they're
NHL.
the
I
new
hate them.
Arizona Coyotes.
Yeah.
Bring them back. Listen,
Oh,
so Jack and I have this friend we went to elementary school with named Jordan, who we swear was a Kings fan growing up, and now he's some obnoxious Vegas Golden Knights fan, and we always talk in the group chat every time, whenever the Kings lose, he'll send a thing, or if Vegas loses a bad game, we'll send him a thing. Um, and it's just like it angers me. It angers me that our
yeah.
great friend Jordan was a Kings fan growing up, and then he decided to be a Vegas fan. I don't know what that whole thing is. Did we ever get down to that, by the way? Why he decided he claims he was never a Kings fan, but we know that's not true.
I mean, I think he just woke up one morning and chose violence. But the, guys, this matchup is really self-explanatory if you look at it. I mean, so, I'm not discrediting Dallas at all. They had an amazing season. They're an amazing team. I mean, but when it just comes down to it, playoff hockey, like me and Nate have been talking about, I know he doesn't agree with me on this one, but if we're talking playoff hockey, the Knights are the team that checks all those boxes.
It's gonna be a fantastic series no matter what. I'm not gonna lie, like Vegas and 5 really it really threw me off, but that's the magic of the playoffs. And I was going to mention before you did that. Obviously, we mustn't forget that the Vegas Golden Knights won the Stanley Cup last year. Somehow Jonathan Marchessault, I mean, he was the Conn Smythe winner, which like he's got to be one of the worst Conn Smythe winners in recent memory. Maybe that's because I think he's a diver. But just want to talk about Dallas for a second. They their leading scorer had 80 points, Jason Robertson, who had a down year as compared to last year, he had 109 points. But I
Mhm.
was looking at they don't have too many players that are putting up crazy numbers. So when it comes to, the Rangers, for example, the Oilers, or, some of the top teams that have multiple players with 80 plus, some even have multiple players with 100 plus, 90 plus. The highest scorer is 80 points for Dallas. The next highest is 67. Joe Pavelski, who would have thought he's still going? Wisconsin legend, by the way. Um, but the Stars have 9 players that have 50 or more points. It just shows that they don't really have one player that truly stands out. Yeah, you could say Robertson is a standout. Obviously, Wyatt Johnson putting up 30 plus goals this season as a second year. Fair enough. But they've got the depth. They've got such a good balanced team on offense. They're really what do they call it? I'm blanking on it. What do you call it when not like a top 16, but when you got when you utilize all 4 lines, when you got that all
I mean,
something about
I
12,
mean, I
12.
don't think there's one specific term for it.
I
Maybe
can't think of it on top of my head.
the
Like it's like
one that's not getting it. But I mean, I totally agree with that. I think they're all, you have so many players, not to mention Matt Duchene. There's, I mean,
yeah.
Tyler Sagan. I mean, there's so much star power. I mean, obviously their, main success came earlier on in their career, but, who's to say they can't have it again this playoff? I think they just have so much opportunity here to do well. And, it's going to be, I think they're going to be an exciting team. And, certainly not excited if the Kings end up facing them.
No, I mean I mean if we end up, by the way, the Kings, in order to face one of these teams, would have to then make it all the way to the
Yeah.
Western Conference Final, which we'll get to in a little bit. And my last thought on Dallas here is Jake Ottinger, like you said, Nate, one of the best goalies in the league. I think he's fantastic. I don't want to say made a name for himself, because he was.
No, he did. Yeah, I
No,
mean,
I will say, in the playoffs, I think it was a couple years back, maybe 2022, he did make a name for himself in that series against Calgary that went to 7 games. His team ended up losing in overtime. He let up a pretty bad goal in overtime to end the series, but he was unbelievable. And since then, he's been lights out. I
yeah.
think he will be the difference maker for Dallas. I think Dallas is a very good deep team. And again, I think they're awesome. I think they're so good. But I think Ottinger will be the story. As for Vegas, on paper, with all their healthy players, which they have now, surprise, surprise, um, they look to be the scariest team in the league, I think, on paper, with
Mhm.
the addition of Hurdle at the trade deadline, and then we forget on the defense as well, Noah Hannafin. They got arguably the best available forward at the
Right.
trade deadline, and arguably the best available defenseman at the trade deadline. Um, Fully healthy, their team is very scary, and I can tell you right now, Jack and I were talking about this yesterday, whether or not Vegas threw the game against Anaheim, thinking like, okay, maybe we'd rather play Dallas rather than Edmonton. Obviously, I don't think teams really throw, but I mean, it happens. It happens. Um, but I think this is worst case scenario for Dallas. I don't know if they were watching the Kings Blackhawks game, but after the Ducks beat the Knights, they were probably pretty mad. They're like, okay, the Kings, we want the Kings. The Stars want the Kings. They absolutely dominated the Kings this season. The Kings had no chance. They looked terrible against the Stars all season long. They wanted the Kings. When they found out they got Vegas, I'm sure they were all like, okay, here we go. It's going to be a fucking mountain to climb, right? But they got it. And it's going to be one of the best series, I think. I think the winner of this, to be honest, probably gets out of the West. And I don't want to go too
Mhm.
far ahead. We'll get there when we get there.
Mhm.
For that reason, I am picking the Dallas Stars in 7 games. I think
Mhm.
it'll go 7, but I do think Dallas will edge out the Golden Knights.
Yeah.
A little bit of bias there, only because I don't like the Golden Knights, but I truly do think Dallas. I mean, Jack, you could back me up. I've been talking high praise about the Stars all season long. You know,
I mean, who hasn't? I don't think you're special
exactly. I mean,
in those
and
games. But
to be fair, like the Golden Knights, they've flown under everybody's radar a little bit because, like you said, they are a wild card team and they have been injured for a lot of it. They haven't been their best, but now they are at their best and defending Cup champions. You, when you win the Stanley Cup, I don't know why I'm speaking like I've ever won the Stanley Cup. Obviously, you put me on skates, I'm like a giraffe, but like once you win the cup, you know how hard it is to get to that stage. The Golden Knights, a lot of the same players that made it to the cup final in that first season know what it felt like to lose in the final. They then make it back and they win the cup. They know how hard it is to get to that stage.
Mhm.
So they're going to be coming out fighting. The Stars as well. Remember, they made the cup final against Tampa, looking to win their first cup since 1999. They couldn't do it. Both these teams have experience in the final in recent few years. They're going to be fighting like hell to get into the second round. And it's honestly one of my favorite series to watch. I think I'm most excited to watch this one, and then maybe Toronto, Boston would be a close second. But I'm going Dallas in 7. On to the next, which is, you want to say, equally as good, depending on who you ask. You've got the Winnipeg Jets, who were able to clinch the Central Division second place, and the Colorado Avalanche getting third place. The Jets will have home ice advantage. The Jets have swept the Avalanche this season 4-2, 6-2, and 7-0. That to me threw me off. I'm like, okay, you know what? The Avalanche, I think they win this series. Then I remember, okay, hold on a second. The Jets kind of manhandled them in the regular season. We've never seen these two teams face off against each other in the playoffs. Uh, it's very close for me. Is it as close for me as it is for you guys?
I mean, this is a close one for me for the fact that I personally just haven't watched a lot of Winnipeg games. I know they've been doing really well throughout the season. And obviously, Colorado, they're always on, social media, whatever. They're a great team. I think Winnipeg, they're a hungry team. Obviously, Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, I think they have a good core going on there. But and obviously, Tyler Toffoli. I mean, that was a huge pickup. I think he's going to be, obviously he's proven to be, that one guy that has helped the team out a ton, and so I think they are going to have some success there. But I can't root against Nathan McKinnon. I think he is, and if not one of the best players in the NHL. I think they have obviously Kale and all these great players who they have the depth, and I think that's what you're really looking for. However, once again, always coming down to the goalies. Gorgiev, a little bit of a concern for me. I think he's tied for 39th in save percentage, if I'm not mistaken.
He's
I haven't been too pleased with, watching him. So that poses a little concern for me in that series. But, I think overall, I think Colorado will find a way, and I think they're going to do it in 7. I think it's going to be a tight one.
7. You say Colorado in 7?
Yeah, because personally, I haven't watched Winnipeg all too much, but
Uh,
from what they have, I mean, IFL and obviously Velarde, I think he's out for the season, correct?
I think no, he'll be back.
Okay. Well, I mean, I
Vardy.
think Velarde hasn't proven anything in the playoffs. I mean, I haven't, I mean, he was a great player for us, and obviously, we're not a fan, not too big of fans,
Here
too
comes
big
the
of
Velarde
fans right
slander. I've
now.
been waiting for this.
Yeah, but obviously someone like Alex Iafallo, I think he's a great player, and he could be a good ringer for them. So that's all I got from this series. I haven't really watched it much, don't have anything, but I know it's gonna be tight. So probably Colorado in 7.
Colorado in 7. Okay, Jack.
I also think this one's gonna be really tight. It could really go either way. I mean, I'm sitting here, I changed my mind again. And I think that it's gonna come down to goaltending, defense, and I mean, if they just can just stay alive when Colorado goes out for the power play, they're most likely scoring a goal. But if you can just slow that down a little bit, I think they're gonna have a chance in this one. I think it goes 6 games. I'm gonna have the Jets.
Jets in 6. Okay, so you say Avs in 7. You say Jets in 6. For me, I mean, we're looking at someone who is, I mean, he's my pick at least. Nathan McKinnon is my pick for the Hart Trophy. I think
Mhm.
he will be the MVP.
Yeah.
And then you've got my pick, and I think most people's picks for the Vezina with Connor Hellebuck in net for the Jets. I mean, he has been
Right.
absolutely unbelievable. He obviously just won the Jennings by himself. The first solo winner since Quick won it back in I want to say 2018. But anyway, so Hellebuck, who's got 37 wins this season, he's got the best save percentage in the league among starting goaltenders. Obviously, there's a couple guys that played like 6 games, that have better save percentage than him. But he is certainly the front runner for for the Vezina for me. But again, you got to play against players like Nathan McKinnon, who's got 140 points, who's just behind Nikita Kucherov from the Lightning. McKinnon, it's scary. First of all, he hit 100 points for the first time last season, 111. He goes and then gets 140. He breaks, by the way, the Avalanche record for most points in a season by 1 point. That was back in 82, Peter Stastny. But McKinnon has been incredible. Then you've got Rantanen, who's got 100 plus points. Only two teams in the NHL have two players with 100 plus points, Edmonton and Colorado. And then you've got Cale Makar, a defenseman, 21 goals as a defenseman. Incredible. Tack on 69 assists, you got 90 points for Cale Makar. This team is absolutely, it seems to me that they're unstoppable. And I want to change my pick. I do. But like I said, I'm not going to do it. And it brings me to the Jets again. I just think, it's so hard for me to say. First of all, if the Jets win the Cup, Adam Lowry is going to be the most random captain to ever hold the Stanley Cup. But again, you do have that depth of Velarde, for example, and Iafallo, just the two former Kings boys. But then you got that acquisition of Toffoli. Should have been a King, but we didn't get him. Toffoli. Then you got Scheifele, of course. To me, he's always a difference maker for the Jets in the playoffs. Morrissey as well is having a career year on the blue line. And then you got players like Ehlers and Connor, who are just, again, well, Connor and they're big names for the Jets, but they really kind of snuck up on us in the last couple of years. The Jets, this is the best team the Jets have seen probably ever. I know they're not a very, they're one of the youngest franchises in the league. But to me, I mean, after losing in the first round last year to Vegas, after having such an amazing season this year, I don't think they're going to go out in the first round. And I think the Jets are going to win this series in 7 games over the Colorado. So, Jack, you said Jets in 6, yeah?
Yeah, I think you made a good choice.
Yeah, I think I did too. And it hurts me too, because I have a hard time with picking teams that I don't want to win a series. And I don't want the Jets to win. I really don't. I'd much rather have Colorado, but I do think Winnipeg will win in 7. We've got 2 left here. The last one's the big one. Right now, we've got a very interesting series. So we've got the Vancouver Canucks, number 1 in the Pacific, and then the wild card 1, who is a team that I just don't think should be a wild card team, the Nashville Predators. This is a team that is a wild card team because they're in the same division as Winnipeg, Colorado, and Dallas. Nashville, I think, destroys the Pacific if they're in it. It's a tight one for me. I mean, the Canucks, this is the best season they've had since they won the President's Trophy back in 2012. Obviously, that didn't really end well for them. You've got JT Miller getting 100 points. Quinn Hughes, who leads defensemen in points, he's got 92, which is absolutely incredible. Pettersson with 89 as well. They're going to come in hot, the Canucks. They're going to come in hot. First of all, JT Miller, where did he come from the last few years? He currently has 11 straight games with a point. The record is 15 for Canucks. Doesn't carry over to the playoffs, but JT Miller has finished the season off incredibly. You've got Rick Tocchet, who, in my opinion, is going to be the Jack Adams winner for Coach of the Year. What he did with the Canucks is to me, really, it's incredible. I thought they were going to be a fluke at the beginning when they were really good, and they weren't. They were actually the real deal. On the flip side for the Predators, you've got Yossi, who's got 23 goals as a defenseman. That's most among all D-men in the league. Again, they're a dangerous team. They really are. The Predators are great. We remember they weren't in a playoff spot for a big portion of the season. They won on an 18-game point streak from February 17th all the way to the very end of March to then put themselves in this wild card position. So they really strung it together to get into this playoff spot. But for me, I don't think the Canucks are going to let this slip again. I think their fans deserve a playoff series win. It's been a very long time since they've had much playoff success. I'm going to go Vancouver in 5 games over the Predators.
I'm not going to say the same as that. In fact, Well, actually, I'll get to my games in a second, but from this matchup, from the standpoint, I believe this is the weakest matchup in the NHL. I think whoever comes out of this, Nashville, Vancouver, well, I think the Oilers or Kings, whoever it's going to be, I think they're just going to steamroll them. I just think that, obviously, I don't think Vancouver should be as high as they should be. Obviously, Nashville, they want a little bit of a heater, so they deserve to be in the playoffs, but I just don't think they're going to have that gas to get there. However, JT Miller, he's rolling. Like would you say? I think it was 100 points, right, this season. I mean, he's going to be a guy that's going to be huge, and he's proven to be a selfish player at times throughout his career. But I think it could be interesting to see how he responds with his team. Having so much success this season, and Nashville is great too. I mean, Forsberg obviously 94 points, and Yossi obviously doing what he does best. But I think people kind of undermine the goalies. I think Saros is a great goalie. I think Lankinen, if he gets in, I believe I believe Saros. Yeah, Saros is obviously the starter. Lankinen, I believe if he gets in, his stats say so. I think Nashville's going to do pretty well. And so I'm going to take Nashville in 6.
Okay, and I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but on this one, me and Nate see things eye to eye. I
You
think
hate to
that
say.
this is a weak matchup, but I think the Preds are going to come out in this one in 6. Not much really to talk about. I just think they're the better team. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think Vancouver, like Aidan, you're saying their fans deserve it. Like, sure, but their fans have deserved it for how many years now?
It's the
And
seventeenth.
they're not getting it anytime soon. So
That's fair enough. You want me to be honest before we get into this next matchup, which hopefully we can in the next 5 minutes here, that we have left on our Zoom call. 'Cause I don't want to make a third Zoom. I'll just say it really quickly is, oh my gosh, I forgot. Yeah, so if the Canucks, I want the Canucks to go through and beat the Predators because I do think the Kings, should they get past the Oilers, can then get past the Canucks. And I'm not sure they can with Nashville. That's just me. Okay. The big one we've all been waiting for. For the third straight season, the Edmonton Oilers has home ice advantage against the Los Angeles Kings in the playoffs. Nate, kick us off here.
Well, I've had enough of Edmonton. I've had enough of McDavid. I've had enough of Draisaitl. I think everyone's done with this and everything. Everyone's done with the Edmonton. I think they're going to see it if the Kings, which they won't, if they lose to Edmonton. I think Edmonton's going to be the team that everyone just absolutely hates. I think I hate the way they play. They're just so annoying to play against for how the Kings play. I mean, we're not exactly a fast team. We got a few fast guys, but Edmonton's they're all speed, they're all skill. That's certainly not what the Kings are. I mean, we have a few glimpses here and there, but I definitely believe that Edmonton's going to put up a fight here. I think they have all the pieces to do it. But I think the Kings have all the pieces to do it. I think Byfield finally blossoming into being that guy that is really someone the Kings can rely on, and to see what we do with the lines later on or in the playoffs. I mean, I don't even. My dad mentioned something interesting. He's like, I wouldn't want to have Kempe, Kopi, and Byfield on the same line. He believes that distributing them, at least getting Byfield in, a bigger role could be beneficial to the team. I mean, they've tried it out before. It didn't work as how they wanted. He kind of blossoms as a winger now. There's a lot of ways you can go about the series. A lot of outcomes, but obviously I'm going to take that to game 7, and we're going to go with the Kings.
All right, the Kings in 7.
Yeah.
Weisberg, what do you reckon?
yeah, I mean the Kings are coming off of 2 losses to Edmonton in the first round. And the last time this happened, the Kings were in the driver's seat, up 3-2. It looked like we were gonna close them out, and I believe we were winning in one of those games going into the third period, and we blew it. Um, it can't happen again. The Kings are coming with even more vengeance than last time. The Oilers know it's coming, but if the Kings can slow them down in the neutral zone like they did last year and really change the game, if you're slowing the Oilers down before they get on your side of the blue line, it really just changes the game. And I think that if Talbot can play to his potential, which recently he has not been doing, but I have faith in him. And I do think that the Kings are going to win in seven. I think they're going to go up 3-2. Um, Edmonton will win one and we'll take it home. It's going to be tough though. I could see it going either way. If you told me Edmonton was going to win in six, I'd believe you.
Okay. Yeah.
One guy.
No, go
Sorry, you
ahead.
can go. But, all right, so one guy. I mean, I think we forgot to mention was Hyman, by the way. Hyman, having a great season. Obviously, I think he's going to be a huge. I mean, he is going to be. I think he's going to be the guy for them. I think Draisaitl, obviously, he's always great for them. McDavid's great, and obviously his scoring's been down, but his assists haven't. But Hyman's the new goal scorer. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that goes. If we can shut him down in front of the net, obviously he buries a lot down there. I think it's going to be huge.
Yeah, he's got a lot of goals in the crease. To me, I mean, Skinner, Hyman, yeah, put me on a line with McDavid and I'll put up some numbers too. You know what I mean? Like, come on. McDavid, 100 assists. Anyway, I'll try and close out as soon as possible because we only have a minute left. Again, we don't have money for Zoom Pro. Like, why is there Zoom Pro? That doesn't even make sense. All right. Well, Stuart Skinner, the goaltender, he's going to be a tough one to get past. Third in the NHL with wins, best in the West. Special teams is going to be an interesting one. Fourth best power play in the league for Edmonton, best in the Western Conference, second best penalty kill in the league for the Kings, best in the Western Conference. So it's the best power play in the West versus the Kings, best penalty kill in the West. Very interesting. Interesting. You've got Kempe putting up 75 points, Fiala putting up 73, Kopitar still putting numbers up. Then, of course, you got Trevor Moore and Byfield putting up some good numbers. Listen, both of these teams went through slumps in this season. Oilers did, Kings did. Both have new coaches. Jim Hiller, Chris Knobloch. They've never played against each other in the playoffs. Now is going to be the first time. It's going to be a tight one. The Kings have blown some bad leads in the last 2 years in the playoffs. I'm going with Los Angeles in 6 games. The Kings are going to. Well, fantastic. So even Zoom knows I'm lying when I say that I think the Kings are going to win in 6 games. I mean, that was ridiculous. I'm sticking with it. The Kings are still going to win in 6 games. I'm sorry that Zoom didn't believe me and they wanted to kick me out there. And I understand why people would think that I'm insane for that because I kind of am. Why would I think the Kings? Why would I think the Kings can win in 6? I'm a hopeful Kings fan. I'm biased and I'm not going to shy away from that. And my dad says this, that he says he wanted Edmonton from the start. He's like, we're not going to lose to them 3 times. Surely we're not going to lose to them 3 years in a row, right? We might. It could happen. But I'm going to go with LA in 6. So we've gone through all of the playoff series. We've done it all. We've done the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. I will put up a graphic of each of our predictions for the first round. We will record another video in the second round, and let's hope that a lot of our predictions are correct. And let's hope we don't have to talk about the Oilers in the next video. So that does it. So thanks for everyone for tuning in to our first episode of this unnamed podcast that we're going to have to think of a name at some point. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Aidan Michaels, Jack Weisberg, Nate Cohn. It might be, see, I just went down. It's probably, who knows? The configuration is all different. But yeah, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the second round.